Hey guys, we're back. We're live. How is everybody doing? The Royal Rumble has just gone off the air the last couple of minutes or so, and a newsworthy show. I think that's probably the best way to describe it. A newsworthy show in the sense that there was a lot that happened on the show. There was lots of plans put in place when it comes to WrestleMania. I think for a show that was going into it, there was a lot of excitement, and it was a case of, it's very unpredictable. There's a lot that's very unpredictable about this Royal Rumble. There's a lot that's very unpredictable about who's going to win, and both Rumbles were won by surprise entrants, but also I think it's also worth pointing out that put it this way, I predicted near enough every outcome tonight, and I think that was just because we know WWE's plans. You can maybe put it down to the leaks as well recently, I suppose. Right, there's been all of these details about, the leaks when it comes to the plans, when it comes to Ronda Rousey, when it comes to the situation, when it comes to Brock, and when it comes to Reigns, and again, the plans for WrestleMania, as it were. But there was parts of it I really enjoyed. I've enjoyed the opener. I actually enjoyed the Women's Rumble, the last maybe 10 minutes of it. I enjoyed. Actually, I can't actually say that I enjoyed the Brock match with Bobby. To be fair, because I felt like that was it was an angle match. It was to get to a certain point. The Edge and Beth Phoenix match was fun. Main event obviously was cut short for time because Royal Rumble matches generally last 60 minutes. This lasted 50 because the show was already going long. I don't know where they lost time in this one. But in terms of overall Royal Rumbles, I don't think it will be remembered for the news that comes out of it, because we've set up two big WrestleMania main events essentially tonight, and we've had title changes, and we've had, big moments. That's ultimately what this will be remembered for. It won't be remembered for having the best Royal Rumble matches ever. Far from it. Definitely the men's one. Nowhere near it. It won't be remembered for that at all. It'll be remembered, I guess, for a really fun opener that got ruined by a really strange and bizarre finish. Even though the post-match angle was good. It'll be remembered for Ronda Rousey's return, obviously. It'll be remembered for Brock winning this second Rumble. But it just was off, I felt. I think it was just, it didn't really hit home. Again, there were parts of it that were good, but the Rumble matches for me, on the majority of them, for the majority of their entirety, was a bit of a letdown, honestly, and I think that's a bit disappointing. So we'll get into obviously all of the matches. The show started with the Universal Championship match. Roman Reigns retains his Universal Championship, but he doesn't defeat Seth Rollins. He defeats him, he retains his Universal Championship via disqualification, because Seth Rollins actually won the match via disqualification. Now, actually, as a way to start the show, I really can't fault the match. I loved Seth Rollins coming out dressed as in his Shield gear. He came out as his to the Shield music, came out through the crowd, and they really played on that, didn't they, the last couple of weeks about, I'm always going to be your brother, Roman, and talking about Seth Rollins being the guy to turn on the Shield and hit Dean Ambrose and Roman Reigns in the back with the steel chair and do all that kind of stuff. So the mind games, it was all about mind games for Seth Rollins. Can I get in Roman Reigns' head? Am I going to get in Roman Reigns' head? That's the plan. And he did that, and nobody, I don't think, was expecting Rollins to come out dressed in his Shield gear. Nobody thought he was going to do that, and that was going to be the plan. So I enjoyed that. I really did. I really enjoyed that. I thought that was a lot of fun. That was great. And obviously, if you're not going to be in the main event, it's kind of this saying, isn't it? If you're not going to be in the main event, you'd want to be in the opening match. Crowd red's hot. It's a big event, Royal Rumble. For a lot of people, it's their favorite pay-per-view of the year. It's probably my favorite pay-per-view of the year, to be honest with you. So I was excited about that, and the match was great. The match was great. A couple of real close near falls, proper near falls, where I thought, man, I think they're going to do a title switch. Like, I legitimately thought they're going to switch the title here. They're actually going to go for it. Because there was just this feeling, wasn't there, going into it, that maybe they might switch the title. Surely they won't. Are they going to switch the title? No way. Roman Reigns has been champion for over 500 days. And they did the spot where Rollins hits the spear into the pedigree, and he does the curb stomp. And what was great about it, if you go back and watch it, he does the stomp, and he goes for the cover, and he actually sweeps Roman's shoulder in. So you think, right, he's actually gonna pin, and Roman uses his other arm to get up to kick out, which was a great spot. Eventually, we get to the finish, and again, so the match is great. I'm not going to go through all the spots individually. I can't remember them. It's really late, but I really enjoyed the match. I thought it was great. Crowd was super into it. And again, that's a testament to both of them, because the crowd knows Roman Reigns isn't going to lose Universal Championship. So they have to work hard to get them to buy in that maybe Seth actually could win, and maybe they're going to go in a different direction. And they did that. And they did a spot where Reigns looked to have Rollins beat, and essentially Rollins puts out his arm and says, fist bump me in the same way that the Shield used to do, and said, I'll always love you, you'll always be my brother, all that kind of stuff. And it kind of messes with Reigns' head. He locks in the guillotine, and obviously so many people he's beaten with that guillotine. Locks in the guillotine. Seth Rollins is crawling. It doesn't look like he's going to get to the ropes, and they did a great spot. And actually on the watch-along, it kind of caught me off guard. So they did the spot where Rollins' his arm just goes limp. And in the old sort of Hulk Hogan style, they do, when they pull up the arm and then it drops down, and Hogan would always drop down on 2.5 and then wave the finger like that. They did that with Rollins, but as he lifted it up and it dropped down, he dropped it down onto the rope, so they had to do the rope break. And then he just doesn't let go. Reigns just doesn't let go after it. Just goes, no, I'm not going to let go. And then eventually it forces a disqualification. And it sucks because the match was so red hot at that point, and the crowd was super into it, that just having any major title match end in a DQ, let alone a title match that's opening the show at the Royal Rumble, ending in a DQ, it sucks. And the only reason why they would do that is because they want to get more out of this. So to me, it says we're getting Rollins versus Reigns 2 at Elimination Chamber in Saudi. That's the only direction I think that they're going in. If they just pivot to now we're just going to do Reigns versus Brock again, and that's going to be our sole focus, you've still got a full time between now and WrestleMania. So I think that we're going to get Reigns versus Rollins 2 Elimination Chamber in Saudi Arabia. I think that's the way that they go, and that's where Reigns gets the definitive victory. Because make no mistake, he's going to get the definitive victory. That's the plan. But again, I think they're waiting. They're waiting for their time to do that. So I thought the finish sucked. Crowd didn't like it. I think nobody liked it. But this is where I kind of pivot a little bit here, because whilst the finish sucked, I did enjoy the post-match. I enjoyed the post-match beatdown. What they did after the match is Reigns is still absolutely furious, and the Shield entrance and the Shield gear and the fist bump and all of the mind games recently, it's been too much. And Roman Reigns, he's just had enough. He just can't deal with it. He can't deal with what he can't deal with what Seth Rollins has been doing and playing these mind games. It got to him. And what they did is essentially almost shot for shot. They tried to replicate the moment where Seth Rollins turned on Roman Reigns and Dean Ambrose and broke up the Shield, where Rollins gets up, his back's to Roman Reigns. He hits him with a steel chair. As he hits him with a steel chair, Rollins falls and lands on the bottom rope, same way that Reigns did in 2014. And all of it, I thought that was great. I loved it. And I thought it was smart, and I think that plays into the story that maybe Reigns couldn't beat Rollins, right? He's never beaten him before in a title match. He still hasn't. That's 3 victories, or however many victories it is in title matches. And Rollins is beating him again, and maybe he knew he couldn't beat him, and the mind games got to him, and all that kind of stuff. That's what they're playing towards here. Again, they're extending it. So whilst I didn't like the finish, whilst I thought the finish wasn't great, I did like the post-match. I get the story they're trying to tell, in that Rollins is in the mind of Roman Reigns, and he maybe does have one up on him and all that kind of stuff. I think that, again, that to me does make sense. The issue is at the same time you're also running a story whereby Roman Reigns is still obsessed with Brock Lesnar. He's costing him the WWE Championship, etc., etc., etc. And you can't play up that he's this paranoid, terrified of Seth Rollins, knows that he's in his head kind of situation, but he's also dealing with Brock at the same time. because it takes direction away from this Seth Rollins-Roman Reigns feud. And as a fan, you're watching it going, this is great, but ultimately I know that this is leading towards Reigns versus Brock, and Seth's going to lose eventually, because that's the story. That's what they're trying to tell me. That's what I'm being conditioned to believe right now. So I enjoyed the opener. I thought it was a good opener, but and I get the story. Didn't like the finish, but I can see where they're going. I can see where they're going, and that's the situation there. So that was okay, and I thought it was a good opener to the show. And there was heat. And maybe that's what they were saying. Well, it got heat, so if it gets heat and it gets a reaction, that's all that matters. Next, we had the Women's Rumble, which was won by Ronda Rousey, the returning Ronda Rousey. Now, there's a lot when it comes to the Rumbles in this one. So we had surprise entrants from the likes of Melina, Kelly, Michelle McCool, Cameron, Mickie James, who came out to Hardcore Country wearing the Knockouts Championship, Alicia Fox, Summer Rae, Sarah Logan. We had Nikki Bella, Lita, Molly Holly, Brie Bella, Ivory came out in Right to Censor, which was a lot of fun. I enjoyed that. But ultimately, it was won by Ronda Rousey. Came out number 28, eliminated 5 people, and got the victory. Now, this Rumble, for me, was pretty bad until maybe, like I said, the sort of, if you're going to look at it into quarters, 3/4 of this Rumble there's no point even watching, to be honest with you. It was only in the last, I would say maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes that's actually picked up. Because it got to a point where in the last, the last couple of, the last couple of sort of minutes, there was plenty of people actually really strong into the ring. There was like a ton of really, a ton of really big names in the ring. Like the last few names in the ring, you had Rousey, Flair, Shayna Baszler, Bianca Belair, Rhea Ripley, Lita. Like as a final, final 6, it was really strong. And it built really well. And it did come to a climax, which was actually quite interesting, quite fun. But the 3/4 of this was just nothing. And the crowd was flat for it. And I tell you what, there's so much to get into when it comes to the Rumbles, because also as well, the reactions were so flat to the majority of the entrants in both Rumbles, in the men's and the women's Rumble, because the music sucks. Like, we need to have a conversation about the music. The music is terrible. And I understand, like I said before, I get it. I understand why they had to replace the CFO's music. I understand the royalties, and they signed a really bad deal with the record label, and WWE has to pay money and all this kind of stuff. I get it. And they've got this new WWE music producers now in place and all this kind of stuff. But they have produced some of the worst themes, and they're constantly changing these themes. And every time they're coming out, there is no attachment to any of these themes. So there is no reaction. There's no pop. Nobody cares. And you're just getting these flat Rumbles. You're getting these flat moments that really nobody cares about. And that kind of happened in both the Rumbles. Now, I would say the Women's Rumble was far better than the Men's Rumble, because the Men's Rumble, frankly, was terrible. I mean, it really was. It was only getting like the last couple of minutes that the Men's Rumble really got going. But apart from that, it sucked. And it was the same with the Women's Rumble. It was poor for the majority of it, and then it picked up towards the end. The Ronda Rousey surprise, had the leaks not come out, it would have been really surprising. But in fairness, I said previously in a couple of videos, like, who would cheer for Ronda? Would they cheer? Would she be the babyface? Because of the stuff that she said about the WWE fans during her hiatus and all that kind of stuff. But frankly, she got big pop. Crowd reacted. Crowd was into Ronda Rousey. Arguably one of the biggest pops of the night, to be honest with you, was for Ronda Rousey in her return. So she last eliminated Charlotte Flair. I think, given Meltzer's reports are probably accurate, that we're going to see Ronda Rousey versus Charlotte Flair at WrestleMania. SmackDown Women's Championship. She's going to be on SmackDown. She's going to be on Raw tomorrow night, it must be said as well. So I think some people are saying, oh, maybe she's going to Becky Lynch, all that kind of stuff. I wouldn't be surprised if Becky and Charlotte are on Raw tomorrow, or we just see the situation. They do this quite a lot too, where it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to be on both Raw and SmackDown until I make my decision, and then when I make my decision, then I'll be on that show. Like Edge did it last year, right? When Edge was on Raw, NXT, and SmackDown. So I think they might go in that situation. I'm going to appear on Raw, and then I'm going to appear on SmackDown, and then I'll make my mind up as to really where I'm going to go and what decision I want to make and all that kind of stuff. I think that's probably what they'll do. But Rousey winning makes sense. To be honest, the biggest surprise in this one was that Sasha Banks was in this match, and she got eliminated super quick. Like she was like the third name eliminated in the Rumble. I'm not even joking. She was the third name eliminated. She eliminated Melina and Kelly. Melina was the second entrant, and she got eliminated like immediately, by the way. But she was, she was. It was crazy. Like, I was shocked. Sasha Banks got eliminated by Queen Zelina, and it was like, what? It felt very, very odd, that. But yeah, we're going towards Ronda Rousey versus Charlotte Flair at WrestleMania. I think that's the likely destination. And as I spoke about earlier, I'm not like totally horrifically against it. It must be said, I'm not, because I think that Bianca Belair should be facing Becky Lynch at WrestleMania. So that was the Women's Royal Rumble match. Next, we had the Raw Women's Championship match. This was always going to be a tough spot, and it was made even worse, to be honest with you. And I really did feel for Becky Lynch and Doudrop, honestly. I really did. Because, like, it's a tough spot anyway, right? After a Rumble, they've been wrestling for an hour. Big return, big victory, Ronda Rousey, all that kind of stuff. So this title match, and again, because it was a nothing match, because everyone knew that Doudrop wasn't going to win. Nobody thought Doudrop was going to win this match, and she didn't. So everyone knew that was going to be the case. So, okay, well, it's a filler match. It is what it is, basically. That happens, and the crowd's, it's the bathroom break, and people are sort of, resetting the energy levels, all that kind of stuff. The problem was, on top of it being a bit of a filler match and a bit of a reset match, Ronda Rousey's pyro, when she's pointing to the WrestleMania sign, set the WrestleMania sign on fire. It melted the WrestleMania sign, so much so that the fire caused the section below it to be evacuated. This distracted the entire crowd, because why wouldn't it? You're looking up going, oh my God, that sign's on fire. Those people are being evacuated. So people aren't even paying attention to the match anyway. Not that they were in the first place, but they're certainly not going to pay attention to it now. That was part of the problem of this one. I mean, the crowd was dead anyway, but the crowd was super dead because of the stuff that was going on with the sign and with the logo and all that kind of stuff. That was unfortunate, and I think you can't even really grade the match because of that. Like, it wasn't their fault. It was a tough spot anyway. Piper Niven did her best. There were some cool spots. The final spot is Becky Lynch doing the manhandle slam from the second rope off the top rope, whatever it may be, and she gets the victory. And you felt a bit bad, like Becky Lynch, was pissed off at the sign and was calling out the sign, and it sucks because you wanted to have that big match, and certainly for Doudrop, Piper Niven, you wanted to have that big match, that big moment, but it was always going to be that match, really, and I'm sure they would have hoped that they could maybe steal the show. I'm sure they would have hoped that they could have got a ton of attention, or they would have hoped that they could have, just done something really special. But given the spot that they were in, they were always going to be in trouble. Realistically, they were always going to be in trouble, and that was part of the problem. Ultimately, they were always going to be in trouble with that spot, and then given the other circumstances, it was just they were stuck. Next match was the WWE Championship match, the Dream Match. Bobby Lashley versus Brock Lesnar. Bobby Lashley is the new WWE Champion. So the finish of this one, so first of all, there wasn't really a lot happening in the match, must be said. It was quite a short match, 10 minutes. After back and forth suplexes by Brock and Bobby and all that kind of stuff, we have a ref bump. Then Brock gets Bobby up on his shoulders, does an F5 into the referee, another ref bump. So Brock covers Bobby. Nobody's there to count the 1, 2, 3. That's what happens. Brock gets up out of nowhere, spear by Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns spears Brock Lesnar. Reigns then looks over at Paul Heyman, gives him a stare, puts out his hand, and then Paul Heyman gives the WWE Championship to Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns then, bang, hits Brock Lesnar in the face with the championship. Bobby Lashley then gets the cover and becomes WWE Champion. So Paul Heyman has turned on Brock Lesnar. I mean, I think most people probably saw that coming. Again, it was my prediction going into it, is that was one of the likely scenarios, that I felt that Brock was going to drop the championship. And to be honest with you, I think this was probably the plan at day one. We've heard time and time again that whilst the day one plans changed because Roman Reigns tested positive for COVID, the ultimate end game when it comes to WrestleMania, that plan hasn't changed. The plan always was to have Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns for the Universal Championship. That's what we're getting. They might have taken a bit of a different route to get there because of the COVID situation at day one, but we're still getting to the same destination that WWE wanted to get to, and that's Brock versus Roman Universal Championship, WrestleMania. Main event night 2. That was always the plan. So I think the original plan, and this would probably be confirmed at some point, but I think the original plan was to have Brock obviously versus Roman at day one for the Universal Championship. That's when we would have seen Heyman turn on Brock, and at the time Reigns would have retained the Universal Championship, and then we would have got to the point where Brock then won the Rumble, as was the plan tonight, and then we would have got Brock versus Roman at WrestleMania. Because obviously he tested positive, Roman, for COVID at day one. They decided to pivot. Instead, they had Brock win the WWE Championship and said, okay, we'll do Brock versus Bobby, and then Roman can cost him the match. That's what we're going to do. So they're getting to the same destination. They just took a different route to get there because of the whole COVID situation at day one. So it's not totally surprising. I think, to be honest, at this point, and this is how I think, I would say successful Brock Lesnar's run has been since he returned last summer, is that I don't know, and this is how crazy it is, I don't know that Brock Lesnar as a character, I don't know if Brock Lesnar actually truly, I don't know if he needs Paul Heyman anymore. I really don't. I don't know if he needs him. I was thinking that when he came out. Obviously, you have the Paul Heyman doing the Brock Lesnar intro, and you have Paul Heyman bigging up Brock and all that kind of stuff, and I get it. Like, that's I get it, and that's the gimmick, and people like that, and that's cool. But this version of Brock is different. This version of Brock cuts promos. He's got a different look. He's a baby face. He's fun. He doesn't really care. He's wearing a cowboy hat. He's wearing dungarees. He's being himself. And I don't know if this version of Brock necessarily needs Paul Heyman. And I thought when Roman Reigns came out for the opening match and he wasn't with the Usos and he wasn't with Paul Heyman, I thought Roman Reigns needs Paul Heyman. I feel like that this character needs the sycophants around him. He can't be on his own. So I would argue that maybe Roman Reigns needs the Paul Heyman character more than Brock Lesnar does at this point. And I think you almost have to give WWE credit, I think, for that, in that they've done that actually quite well. They really have done that quite well, in that I would argue that Roman Reigns actually needs Paul Heyman more than Brock Lesnar does at this point. And I think that's a lot of credit. So, again, the match itself, I mean, the dream match that we thought it was going to be, I don't think it probably was. I don't know if it was ever going to be. I think that it's set up for something to happen in the future. If they want to revisit it, they can. Bobby owns a victory over Brock at this point. And it's Brock Lesnar, right? He always likes to get that win back. So I think they will revisit it at some point, which they probably should, to be honest. They should revisit it and actually have a better match. It felt clunky. I don't know what Bobby Lashley was doing when it came to some of the German suplexes. He landed on his head, or his arm rather, probably 10 million times. Every single time he took a German suplex, he rotated and landed on his shoulders. It looked brutal. Absolutely brutal. I don't know what he was doing with that. But was it the dream match? No. But it was the match that kind of served a purpose. And maybe that's why it felt a bit flat, because it wasn't actually really coming out of it, you kind of forgot that Bobby Lashley won the WWE Championship for a second time, and nobody's almost talking about that. That shouldn't that be one of the big things? Oh, Bobby Lashley's WWE champion. It feels secondary because of everything that was going on. So I don't know who Bobby faces at WrestleMania. I really don't, because Brock won the Rumble, and he's facing Roman Reigns. On the Raw side of things now, who's on that brand? Edge? Maybe it's Edge, I guess. Maybe it's Edge. Who's the babyface? Drew McIntyre's on SmackDown. Big E's on SmackDown. Who's the top babyface on that brand right now? I don't know. Legitimately, I don't know who the top babyface is on that brand. Honestly, it might be Edge. Maybe that's the direction they're going, or maybe it's AJ Styles. I couldn't tell you who Bobby Lashley is going to face at WrestleMania right now. It's tough. It's a tough one to figure out, and you can let me know in the live chat or in the comment section below. Next up, we had the mixed tag team match between Edge and Beth Phoenix going up against the Miz and Maryse. Of course, Edge and Beth Phoenix got the victory, which was to be expected here. But to be honest with you, again, I felt that this was a tough position. They just had the WWE Championship match. They had to follow the WWE title match, which wasn't exactly like a tough match in terms of, oh, it's an amazing match to follow. It was a tough match to follow because it was very newsworthy. You had a title change. You had, it was a dream match they're following. And on top of that, you're following a big angle in Heyman turning on Brock. So that was a tough spot for them to follow. And the crowd was tired at this point, and the crowd was coming down, and they're already thinking, okay, I just want to get to the Rumble. But in credit to everyone in this match was way, way, way better, I think, than it had any business being. Ultimately, it was just fun. And I don't think anyone was expecting or hoping that this was going to be an absolute classic, and it wasn't. It was not a classic, but it was fun. Honestly, it was a ton of fun. And I think that I want to single out Maryse as well, who I thought did an amazing job. Like, people kind of sleep on Maryse as like, oh, she's terrible in the ring. I don't necessarily think that she was. During that Divas era, she was actually a solid worker. That's why she was Divas champion. That's why, she got pushed maybe for other reasons, but she can work. It's like, absolutely she can work, and she knows what she's doing. And you've also got people in there like Edge and Beth Phoenix and The Miz who absolutely know what they're doing, and so does Maryse. So they had a false finish, which I totally bought into as well, where Maryse does a top rope Hurricane Rana onto Edge, and then she hits a French kiss DDT onto Beth Phoenix. I thought, oh my God, she's going to win. And then Maryse, The Miz hit a skull crushing finale onto Edge, and I thought, oh my God, they're going to win. They're going to carry on this storyline, and they don't need to. By the way, this is where it should end. But I thought, whoa, they're going to actually do it, and Edge kicks out. Finally, at the end, you get Beth Phoenix and Edge hit a double spear on The Miz, and then they hit stereo glam slams for the win. Like I said, it was never going to be a classic. It was, I felt that it was, one, I felt it was fun, and two, I think it came across as being fun because you could tell that the performers involved in it were having fun. Both sets of people are, of course, real life husband and wife. They've both got kids who I'm sure are in the front row, and as I said during the watch along, like, imagine your parents was a WWE superstar, both of them, and you get to watch them in a stadium. I mean, it's badass. That's moments. That's absolute moments. And it looked like they were just having a blast, and it was fun. So I don't have any criticisms of the match, honestly. Again, I thought it was fun, and it came across as being fun. So I enjoyed that one. Finally, we had the Men's Rumble. And obviously, as you can see on the thumbnail, it was won by Brock Lesnar, which, again, I thought was relatively predictable. This was not good. This was not good. Not in the sense that, it was sloppy or mistimed spots. I mean, there was one big spot that was completely blown by Kofi Kingston, but it was just bad. Like, there was just nothing of really substance happened. The crowd was flat because I think they maybe expected more, but it was just bad. And I think it's a real testament. I really do think it's a testament. And this is the biggest example that WWE has a massive problem in creating stars, a huge problem in creating stars, in that there just weren't any really in this match. It didn't feel like there was any in this match. Again, I think the music is a massive issue. A lot of these people got their themes replaced by themes that objectively suck. They're terrible. Like, some of the theme songs that have been replaced by this have been awful. And the problem is with that is that every time there was an entrance, nobody knew who was coming out because they're like, I've never heard this music before. Who is it? And then they come out and they go, oh. And they came into the ring, and it was nothing. It felt like absolute nothing, I mean, to the point, like, you had some returns. You had Drew McIntyre make his return, and okay, that was cool. And I mean, the fact that Madcap Moss eliminated AJ Styles is a joke. It is an absolute joke. I couldn't believe it. Some of the high points of this match, probably Bad Bunny. Bad Bunny, every time, like, I get it, he's a huge star, and obviously all of the downloads that he has in the streams, and he's a Grammy winner and all that kind of stuff. Every time he steps into a ring, he delivers. I'm telling you, he delivers. And seeing him, get F5 by Brock Lesnar was probably the highlight of the match, to be honest. I mean, Johnny Knoxville came out and got one of the biggest pops of the match, and that was fun. And seeing AJ Styles nearly knock his head off, that was entertaining. I enjoyed that as well. But as a Rumble, it felt really underwhelming. Let me know your thoughts in the live chat. Be sure to subscribe as well. Bottom right-hand corner, smash a like on the like button. We do daily news videos talking about all things WWE, AEW, Impact Wrestling, and more. But yeah, it just felt a bit flat. And Shane McMahon came out And really, I thought when they said Shane McMahon's going to be in St. Louis and Shane McMahon's going to be involved in all that kind of stuff, I thought, okay, they're doing the storyline. Austin Theory is Vince McMahon's protege, right? Shane McMahon's his biological son. So they're going to do that. Like, he's going to eliminate Austin Theory. And it's going to be like, oh, Dad, why are you talking to this kid? All this kind of stuff. I thought they were going to do that. They didn't. Like, Shane McMahon just came out 28 and was just there. And eventually got eliminated by Brock. And that was kind of about it. You know, Brock comes out, eliminates everyone. Last two is Brock and Drew McIntyre. And it felt like a big deal. And then Brock pretty quickly eliminated Drew McIntyre. They had to cut the match short by about 10 minutes because something went long. So they were running out of time. They had to go off the air at the top of the hour, which they did. And Brock Lesnar now, I guess, will be facing Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. And it just, again, for going into a show where I was excited because I was like, well, actually, you know what? There's a lot of unpredictability here in the Rumbles, and the Rumbles were won by two people that weren't announced for either Rumble. It just, again, especially the second one, like I said, with the Women's Rumble, I will give it credit that I felt that the sort of final stretch of that was actually quite enjoyable. And actually, again, I looked around in the ring, and this is what's crazy as well. I talk about creating stars. I looked around in the Women's Rumble, and the last 6 people in there, I was like, okay, they're stars. They're absolute stars in that one. Again, the final 6 people were, you know, Ronda Rousey, Charlotte Flair, Shayna Baszler, Bianca Belair, Rhea Ripley, and Lita. They're stars. That's stars in there. But I look at like the final few people in the Men's Rumble. You know, Brock Lesnar, okay, obviously he's Brock Lesnar, but you got Drew McIntyre, Shane McMahon, Riddle, Bad Bunny, Randy Orton. I'm like, in terms of being a sort of a final stretch, you know, and it did feel rushed, and it was, you know, like I said, the sort of the majority of that Rumble just meant absolutely nothing, like absolutely nothing. And it will be one of the more forgettable Rumbles in WWE history, in my opinion. I mean, I felt bad for Kofi Kingston. Obviously, he came out, he's going to do the Kofi spot. Goes up to the top rope. Kevin Owens shoves him. I think he's meant to land, like, you know, stomach first or sternum first on the barricade, and then do a kind of a Rumble spot where he jumps back in, all that kind of stuff. His feet touch the floor. And I guess, you know, after doing all of those years of doing those crazy spots and all that kind of stuff, after years of doing that, eventually it caught up to him. And he got caught out, and that's basically what happened. I think there were planned spots involving him and Big E, but this is another one, Big E. Big E got eliminated by Riddle and Randy Orton. He got eliminated, I think, 23rd, and it's just like, this guy was WWE Champion at the beginning of the month. He just got traded to SmackDown. He got eliminated before Otis, you know, in the Royal Rumble, and it meant nothing. It meant absolutely zero. I talk about a guy that he was meant to be facing, the plan was Seth Rollins versus Big E, WrestleMania WWE Championship. That ain't happening. Like, that is not happening now. He's on SmackDown. He's teaming with Kofi Kingston. You know? Like, what happened? And I don't necessarily mind the outcome, per se, of the Rumble, because, again, I think it makes sense. You know, I think that, you know, Brock versus Roman, like I said, that was always the plan. I think Brock winning the Rumble was always the plan as well, because the plan was for Brock to get screwed at day one. This sort of Heyman screw job was meant to happen. This screw job was meant to happen at day one, and then Brock would win the Rumble. That would be the plan. Again, because of Roman testing positive, they just kind of changed course. They changed direction with it, but they've got to the same destination. But yeah, and just in comparison, that Rumble just wasn't for me. I felt that it was a real lack of star power. There was also as well, I think a lot of people have, especially after watching that first Women's Rumble, got used to there being lots of surprises or a couple of surprises and all that kind of stuff, and there just weren't any. Like, Johnny Knoxville, we knew that was going to happen. Bad Bunny, whilst it was a surprise, they announced it essentially before the show. Bad Bunny's in St. Louis. They posted a picture of him with The Undertaker. Shane McMahon, that was out there, but there wasn't, apart from that, there weren't the surprises that people thought there was going to be, and I guess that is disappointing. Again, I don't necessarily mind the finish. I get the finish. I think the Brock-Roman thing's been mapped out for a while. But we've got now some real big matches essentially set for WrestleMania. We know we've got Brock versus Roman. as the main event, probably for night 2 for the Universal Championship. That's happening, even though the Seth Rollins Roman Reigns thing was there at the beginning of the show. We know that it's going to be Brock versus Roman at WrestleMania. That's the plan. We know we're going to get Ronda Rousey most likely versus Charlotte Flair for the SmackDown Women's Championship at WrestleMania 2. That's the plan there. I think the really sort of interesting and curious things are for the belts on Raw. The WWE Championship, Bobby Lashley's the champion. Who does he face? I look at the roster and I say, right, I need a top babyface. Who's on that show? Who's going to be the top babyface? To me, it has to be Edge or AJ Styles. Bobby Lashley versus Edge. I mean, I'm sure probably we saw that at some point, maybe like 2006, 2007, maybe they faced off at some point. So maybe that's the direction they'll go in. Or Bobby Lashley versus AJ Styles. I could see that one too. But yeah, that's a curious one. The Raw Women's Championship for me has to be Becky versus Bianca Belair, and I think that's a match that Bianca Belair has to be winning. Bianca Belair was still relatively strong, I felt, in the Rumble, but I don't even think she got any elimination. No, she got 0. She was in there for a while, though. She came in, I think, number 8, got eliminated 27, so she did the long haul in there. So I think we're going to get. I think we're going to get. I think we're going to get Becky versus Bianca at WrestleMania. As Coot there says, Seth versus Bobby at Mania. I think that's a possibility. Yeah, I think that might be a real possibility. They might go with, especially because Seth, even though Seth was being Seth Rollins, he was certainly babyface. He was massively babyface tonight, especially coming out to the Shield stuff and all that. Maybe they did fully switch him tonight. I don't think they'll change his character that much. I mean, this is the thing. On SmackDown, Seth's been still kind of working heelish, and it's definitely on Raw he's been working heelish, but tonight kind of felt like a bit of a babyface turn, didn't it? So I could certainly see that happening maybe as well. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. As I said, guys, be sure to subscribe. Bottom right-hand corner. We'll do a quick subscriber check before we wrap things up here. See if we can hit our target. So we're aiming for 6,220. We're only 15 subscribers away. So if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. Let's see if we can get to 6,220. Only 15 subscribers away. As I mentioned, guys, be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe as well, bottom right-hand corner. Yeah, so to wrap things up, an overall show... like I said, newsworthy. It's the difference between being good and being newsworthy. It was super newsworthy. Like when I was making the thumbnail for this after the show, I was looking at it going, usually I just put one image. Usually it's the last image. So it would be like Brock just standing tall in the ring. But I thought that doesn't do it justice. There is actually a lot. There is a significant amount, really, that happened in this show. You've got the Ronda Rousey return. You've got Paul Heyman turning on Brock Lesnar. You could have even put Bobby Lashley winning the title on there. And also you can put Brock Lesnar winning the Rumble. So definitely a newsworthy show. Definitely sets up WrestleMania. But for me, there's a difference between being a newsworthy show and a show that was good. I don't know if there was a term... I think you would probably, if you said thumbs up, thumbs down, I'd probably put it in the middle. If I'm looking at the first match, I would say really enjoyed the opener. Didn't like the finish, liked the angle afterwards. So overall, I'd say, okay, I'll give that a thumbs up. Women's Rumble, I don't think either Rumble was great, frankly. I thought the Women's Rumble was better because I think the final stretch was good with that. And the Ronda Rousey return, she got a big pop. I mean, I was surprised by that. I was saying, are people going to cheer Ronda Rousey? Considering the stuff that she'd said about WWE fans and all that kind of stuff over her hiatus over the course of the last two and a bit years, I thought, but people going to cheer her? They cheered her. Now, whether or not they continue to cheer her is another point. I don't know if they'll continue to cheer Ronda Rousey. It's one thing having someone return for the first time in a couple of years. It's another thing to be there every week. So we'll wait and see when it comes to that, because especially towards the end of her run, people were turning on Ronda Rousey, and that's why I question going forward, like the match at WrestleMania, who's going to be the babyface? Because people don't like Charlotte Flair, and people, whilst they like Ronda Rousey tonight, they might not like her going forward. So that will be a curious one. That certainly will be a curious one going forward. I'm fascinated to see that. But again, I enjoyed the home stretch of that, so I think that was fair. But overall, that Rumble was not amazing by any stretch. If you said, like, if someone said to me, "Oh, okay, if I want to watch the Women's Royal Rumble match," I'd go watch the last 15 minutes. Like, don't watch the first 45. It's pointless. Nothing happens. Next match, the Becky Lynch Doudrop match was always a filler. And I felt bad considering the sign caught on fire. I mean, how often does that happen? Actually, it happened twice tonight. It happened after the Brock match as well, after he won the Rumble. Someone needs to be fired for that. That's ridiculous. And it could really endanger people. I know they, evacuated people out of that spot, but that's actually a massive problem. They need to fix that. So I felt bad for them for that. So I wouldn't even really judge it. The Lashley versus Lesnar match, I mean, did it live up to hype? Probably not. To be honest, probably not. But again, it was an angle match. It was just about getting to where they wanted to go in terms of the screw job and all that kind of stuff. That's where they wanted to get to, and they got to that. And I think it does set up Brock versus Bobby 2 at some point in the future. I do think that they're going to get to that point. I think they've got that in their back pocket that they can come back to, which I think is good. But the match itself, not a lot to write home about. Again, the Edge and Beth Phoenix match, the mixed tag, I thought was fun, and I don't think anyone was expecting it to be a classic. I thought it was fun. I thought it picked up a crowd that was a bit flat at the time, so I felt they did a good job. But I'm happy to see the end of that feud, to be honest, as well. I don't want to see another Cutting Edge or Miz TV or something like that between those two or those four. I'm kind of done with it, to be honest with you. And again, that men's Rumble, frankly, was disappointing, and I think a lot of people involved would be like, yeah, that was really disappointing. That was really not what they were looking for. Again, at the finish, I think I get it. I think that makes sense. Again, I felt that the finish was predictable. That was my predicted finish, that Brock was going to win it. But overall, there was nothing going on in that Rumble, and it was one of the more disappointing Rumble matches, and I think a lot of people would be again, a bit disappointed with that one. Again, the finish, I know some people would say, oh, why did Brock have to win? They could go in a different direction. My question would be, who else would win it? Like, who else? Are the people that were in there, who else would win that? I mean, I thought the only person could be Big E, and he got eliminated reasonably early, again, before Otis, 26th. And I went, right, he's not winning it, then who else? Who else is winning that match? Maybe Drew, but then you realize, okay, if Drew McIntyre wins that match, because he's not facing Roman Reigns at WrestleMania because Brock Lesnar is. So if Drew McIntyre wins that match, he's facing Bobby Lashley at WrestleMania. That was the opening match last year's WrestleMania. And I don't think, considering how many times we saw that last year as well, and isn't the stipulation that Drew McIntyre can't challenge for the WWE Championship as long as Bobby Lashley's champion? So that's not going to, that wasn't going to happen. So as soon as it was Drew McIntyre and Brock, I thought, well, obviously Brock's winning it anyway because Brock's in the Rumble. He's not doing two jobs on one night. But on top of that, I don't want to see Drew McIntyre versus Bobby Lashley again. We saw it a million times last year. So who else in that match could win? Like, there really isn't many. AJ Styles, and you could do maybe AJ versus Bobby at WrestleMania. But I think, as it spoke on earlier then, I think we'll probably get to Bobby versus Seth. I think is probably the way to go to WrestleMania, or even a multi-man. I wouldn't be surprised if they went multi-man in the end. Bobby versus Seth versus Kevin versus maybe, I don't know, and then maybe do Edge versus AJ Styles, which I think is probably the match they want to go for that. Otherwise, they've got a problem with stars and top baby faces in WWE, and I think that's a massive issue going forward. And I think that was really evident in this Rumble match. There was not many top stars, not many top baby faces, not many people that just, again, got a reaction. And that's just because, again, there aren't many, to be honest. I think that's the issue. But as I mentioned, guys, be sure to subscribe, bottom right hand corner. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. I appreciate everyone for tuning in. It is nearly 6 a.m. in the morning. I started at midnight, so I'm gonna go get some sleep. But I appreciate all of you guys tuning in, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Peace.